Hey, let's cut straight to why this story matters. Lewis Hamilton's move to Ferrari looked like a blockbuster, one of the greatest drivers in the sport joining the world's most famous team, and everyone expected fireworks. 6 months into the season, results haven't matched the hype, and Hamilton's own words, calling a weekend useless, and even suggesting Ferrari might need a new driver, have dominated the headlines. In this opening chapter, I'll set the scene. What's happened so far, how Ferrari explains the struggles, and why none of this is quite as simple as a single bad weekend. You've seen the highlights. A sprint win in China, strong one-lap pace across Canada, Spain, Austria, and Britain, and moments when Hamilton clearly looked comfortable and fast. But you've also seen the setbacks, mistakes in qualifying, a spin during sprint qualifying in Belgium, track limit penalties, and in Hungary a Q2 lap that left him out of the final shootout and asking uncomfortable questions. Ferrari boss Fred Vasseur has been unusually frank. Both he and Hamilton underestimated how big a change it would be after nearly 2 decades at Mercedes. That admission is important because it reframes the issue as adaptation rather than instant underperformance. This isn't a simple seat swap to a similar team. Ferrari operates with a different working rhythm, different engineers, different component characteristics, and even different cultural expectations, and Vasseur is careful to describe the problem as a cluster of small, interconnected details, tiny things like brake bite, a slightly different tire operating window, or an expected behavior on corner entry, that together cost tenths and change outcomes. There's a very human angle here, too. Hamilton spent most of his career inside one ecosystem where the language, routines, and communication patterns were familiar. Now he's having to rebuild those interactions with new performance engineers and a different set of technical leads, and even small differences in phrasing or setup cues can mean the driver and car aren't perfectly aligned on race weekend. So before we dive into the nuts and bolts next, I want a quick take from you. Do you think Hamilton primarily needs time to adapt, or should Ferrari be moving faster to change direction? Vote in the comments with A for give Lewis time or B for fix the car now. Also leave a short yes, no. Do you trust Ferrari's plan, yes or no? If you like this kind of breakdown, please subscribe to our channel and enable the notification bell. Your subscription is very important to us. Help us grow and reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. And hit the like button if you want more deep technical and human breakdowns like this. I'll go into the cultural and technical differences in the next chapter, where we unpack what Vasseur meant by those small but expensive details. When you think about it, the move from Mercedes to Ferrari isn't just about changing cars, it's about changing an entire world. That's the part many fans overlook when they ask why Hamilton isn't instantly winning races in red. Fred Vasseur explained it well. The cultural gap between Mercedes and Ferrari is much wider than, say, between Mercedes and McLaren. At Mercedes, everything was familiar. The engineers, the way feedback was processed, the rhythm of a race weekend, even the way meetings were run. At Ferrari, it's not just a different car, it's a different language, a different environment, a different headquarters, and a different way of working through problems. That kind of change is massive when you've spent almost 2 decades inside the same structure. Think about Hamilton's career timeline. He started at McLaren in 2007, but that was essentially the Mercedes Works program. From 2013 onward, he was the heartbeat of Mercedes itself, staying there for 12 years, the longest team-driver partnership in modern Formula One. Compare that to drivers like Carlos Sainz, who has bounced between Toro Rosso, Renault, McLaren, Ferrari, and now Williams all within 8 seasons. Or Charles Leclerc, who was already changing environments before he landed at Ferrari in 2019. For those guys, change is part of the routine. New engineers, new processes, new factory cultures. Hamilton is only experiencing that kind of disruption for the first time, and it makes sense that it would hit harder than expected. Even Sebastian Vettel, who came from Red Bull after 6 seasons, had to spend years adjusting to Ferrari's style, and he was already used to moving once before. The question is, how much does that stability at Mercedes help or hurt now? On one hand, it gave Hamilton consistency and allowed him to build the most successful period of his career. On the other, it means he hasn't had to constantly reset, and that's why Ferrari feels so unfamiliar. I'm curious what you think. Does staying in one place for a long time make adaptation harder, or is the stability worth it? Drop your take in the comments and vote. Longevity, if you think it helps, or frequent moves if you think switching teams often makes drivers stronger in the long run. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Fast News F1 and enable the bell. Your support is helping us get closer to our goal of 1,000 subscribers, and every single click makes a difference. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into those tiny technical details that Vasseur mentioned, the little things that might look invisible on TV but are costing Hamilton valuable tenths every lap. Here's where things get really interesting, because the struggles aren't about one huge glaring flaw. According to Vasseur, it's a chain of small technical details that stack up into bigger problems. Take Hungary, for example. Hamilton missed Q3, but the difference between making it and missing out was just a fraction of a second. That tiny gap came down to details like how the tires were brought into the operating window or how the brakes responded in a critical corner. A slight lockup or the wrong level of bite at the pedal makes the difference between attacking a lap with confidence and losing rhythm. In Belgium, the story was similar. A spin in sprint qualifying and track limit penalties in the main session put him on the back foot, and from that point, recovery was almost impossible. These aren't mistakes born from lack of talent. They're symptoms of adaptation to a car and system that still feel new. Even something as specific as brake material matters. At Mercedes, Hamilton was used to the characteristics of one supplier, while at Ferrari, he's had to adapt to Brembo. The feedback at initial bite, the way the car rotates under braking, even how heat builds in the system. Those things are subtle but critical. Ferrari has already started tweaking components to give him more of what he likes, but that takes time. Then there's the communication side. At Mercedes, Hamilton's engineers understood exactly how he described balance issues. At Ferrari, those same phrases might translate differently, and that's another way fractions of performance can be lost in translation. When you add it all up, what looks like a couple of tenths on a stopwatch is actually dozens of micro details, each stealing a tiny piece of lap time. That's why Vasseur stresses that Hamilton's struggles aren't about one major flaw, but an accumulation of these details. Let me ask you, if you had to choose, which detail do you think makes the biggest difference to performance? Brakes, tires, setup, or communication? Drop your vote in the comments, and let's see what fans really believe matters most. And if you want to keep following these kinds of deep dives into performance, make sure you're subscribed to Fast News F1 and that notification bell is on. In the next chapter, I'll show you how Ferrari is working to fix these issues with new parts, familiar faces, and a step-by-step process designed to finally bring Hamilton closer to the front. Now let's talk about what Ferrari is actually doing to turn this around. Because it's not just about waiting for Hamilton to adapt. The team has been actively working on fixes, both with parts and with people. One of the biggest technical changes this season has been to the braking system. Early in the year, Hamilton struggled with Brembo brakes that behaved differently from the carbon industry spec he was used to at Mercedes. That lack of the sharp initial bite he prefers was costing him confidence on corner entry. Ferrari listened, and from Spa onwards, revisions were introduced that gave him a braking feel much closer to what he likes. That might sound small, but it's huge for a driver who builds his speed on late, aggressive braking. Then there's the human factor. Ferrari has been smart about surrounding Hamilton with familiar faces from his Mercedes past. People like Loic Serra, Jerome D'Ambrosio, and Luca Dalla. These aren't just names on a staff list. They're crucial bridges between Hamilton's old environment and his new one, helping to translate his feedback into actionable changes. They can say, "This is what Lewis means when he asks for X," and that smooths the communication gap that has slowed progress. Vasseur has also emphasized that Ferrari is addressing issues point by point rather than looking for a miracle solution. In practice, that means going back through data after every weekend, refining how setups are prepared, and checking whether small details like tire warm-up sequences or aero balance adjustments can be improved. It's a grind, but it's the kind of grind that delivers results over time. What really matters here is patience. Ferrari knows that knee-jerk changes rarely work in Formula One, and instead they're building a foundation for Hamilton to be competitive when the new regulations arrive in 2026. That reset, with fresh car designs and new energy management systems, could be exactly what Hamilton needs to reassert his edge. But before we jump ahead to the future, I want your take. Do these fixes so far make you feel reassured, or do you still think Ferrari is too slow to react? Drop a simple yes or no in the comments, and let's see where fans stand. And if you want to stay updated on every tweak Ferrari makes, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. Your subscription helps us get closer to 1,000 fans in this community, and it ensures you won't miss a single development. Coming up next, we'll wrap it all together with realistic expectations for the rest of the season and what the Hamilton-Ferrari story could look like going forward. So where does this all lead? The honest answer is that expectations need to be adjusted. When Hamilton signed with Ferrari, plenty of fans dreamed of instant podiums and even race wins. But the reality is that this first season was always going to be a learning curve, and the setbacks we've seen prove how steep it really is. In the short term, Hamilton's realistic goal is consistency, maximizing every weekend, minimizing mistakes, and making sure the progress from earlier in the season becomes the baseline again. That means aiming for solid top 5 finishes and grabbing podiums when the opportunity opens up, rather than expecting a sudden breakthrough every race. Medium term, there's a bigger picture. Ferrari has made it clear that their plan is to methodically fix issues one by one, building trust with Hamilton and shaping the car around his driving style. That doesn't guarantee instant success, but it does create the conditions for results to improve as the season goes on. Then there's the long game, 2026. The sport is preparing for all new cars and regulations, and that reset could play perfectly into Hamilton's hands. Drivers who are experienced, demanding, and skilled at managing energy systems are expected to have an advantage, and that's exactly Hamilton's profile. The partnership may not peak this season, but Ferrari believes that laying the groundwork now will pay off when the rules change. Of course, the big question is whether fans are willing to be patient. Hamilton himself has been brutally honest, calling his Hungary performance useless and raising eyebrows with talk about Ferrari needing a different driver. But Fred Vasseur insists that this kind of self-criticism is a strength, not a weakness. It shows Hamilton still demands the maximum from himself and from the team, which is exactly what Ferrari needs if they want to return to championship contention. So now I'll throw it back to you. By the end of this season, do you expect Hamilton to be a regular podium contender? Drop a yes or no in the comments, and let's get a fan prediction wall going. And if you want to stay with us through every twist in this journey, subscribe to Fast News F1 and enable the bell. Your subscription is very important to us. Help us grow and reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers and be part of the community that follows this story all the way through. Thanks for watching and stay tuned. The Hamilton-Ferrari project may not be easy, but it's far from over.